Okay, so this is a review of the basics of music notation. So first we'll look at the staff. What is the staff? What does it look like? Well, the staff is made up of those 5 horizontal lines that the music is written on. So you have one staff which goes across the page, and the second one. Okay, so now you're looking at 1, 2, 3, and 4 staffs. Okay, so the staff is made up of 5 lines and 4 spaces, and this is where what you use to write music, on the lines and spaces of the staff. Okay, so then you see the vertical lines that divide the staff into measures. Okay, so these vertical lines are called bar lines, and so you see a bar line at the beginning of a measure and at the end of the measure. So if you're counting how many measures are in this piece of music, you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So basically you're counting the spaces in between the bar lines, and that's where the measures are. So the next item, the measures, the spaces in between the bar lines, right? So you have your bar lines, and in between the bar lines are the measures. Another way to look at it is that music is divided into measures using the bar lines, and each measure has an equal number of beats or counts indicated by this time signature on the left. Okay, all right, next item are the notes. You're looking at notes: whole note, half note, quarter note, eighth note, indicated by the flag, 1 flag as opposed to 2. So according to so the whole note is worth 4 beats. According to this time signature, you see number 4 indicating that there are 4 beats in each measure, hence the whole note taking the space, but we'll get back to that. So right now you're looking at notes. Next item, you're also looking at rests. Rests are the pauses in between the notes. For instance, you have ba, there's a pause right here, da, pause, ba, pause, ba, pause. Okay, so during the pauses, which are called rests, you do not play, and the pauses or rests have the same names as the notes, and also the same value in counts or beats. So the whole note is worth 4 beats, and so is also the whole rest. The half note is worth 2 beats, and so the half rest is also worth 2 beats. Now, how do you distinguish between the whole rest and the half rest, since they look alike? They are both rectangles. Well, it depends on whether or not one is hanging from the 4th line or sitting on the 3rd line. So if the note is hanging from the fourth line, just to help you remember, you could say that the stronger one, or the one with the most value, is able to hang on the line, whereby the weaker one, or the one that has lesser value, sits on the line. So that way you'll know that since this one is hanging off the line, this must be the whole note, because the whole rest, because the whole rest has more value than the half rest in amount of beats. Okay, so looking at the quarter rest. So you have the quarter note, the quarter rest. The quarter rest looks like almost like a 3 in zigzag, right? Okay. Notice that you have you go from the top to bottom on a straight line. I guess you might say an oblique line, right? And then so right, left, right, and then you curve, right? And this is what gives you the quarter rest. I mean the quarter rest. The next note in line is the eighth note. So you have two eighth notes here. Eight notes joined by one flag, right? So that's two eighth notes, and now you have the eighth rest. One flag, it looks like a 7, right? Eighth note, eighth rest, right? The next measure, you see the 16th note. Now you have two flags, right? And that indicates that these are 16th note. And then you have the 16th rest, which has two flags, like a 7, looks like a 7, number 7 with two flags. And that tells you that this is a 16th rest. Okay? Right? Okay, the next item, we're looking at the treble clef. Were it not for the cleves, whether it's treble or bass, you could not tell which note these are, because the clef indicates, or the cleves indicate the location of the note on the piano. For instance, we know that this note happens to be middle C, which is somewhere in the middle of the piano, and the notes that are to the right or up from C go to the right side of the piano. And the sound, the more you go to the right, the higher the pitch of the sound. And so the notes that are on the left side of middle C, which are on the bass or F clef, the notes are lower in pitch. Okay, so middle C is sort of the borderline between the right side of the piano, if you go right on the treble clef, or the left side of the piano if you're going to the bass clef. So this is called the treble clef, or another name for it is G, letter G. Okay, so the second line here happens to be the G, the note G, and it indicates where the clef starts to be drawn, and so the second line is G. So the lines are E, G, B, D, F. So G, okay, is the second line, and so this is the G clef, otherwise called treble clef. Here we're looking at the bass clef. Okay, bass clef, B-A-S-S, and notice otherwise called F clef, and so the notes here, you have the lines being G, B, D, F, where you see those two dots, they surround the note F, and then the last one is A. So G, B, D, F, A. These are the lines for the bass clef. So this is the bass clef, which is also called F clef. Right? Also, you're looking at the time signature. The time signature is made up of two numbers, not always 4/4. But if you're looking at this time signature, it tells you that in each measure, okay, you have 4 beats. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and. Okay, so 4 beats in each measure. No matter what notes are there or rest, the combination of these notes should always equal what it says in the number of beats. So the top number tells you how many beats there are in each measure, and the bottom number tells you which note gets 1 beat. In other words, the bottom number is a code. It's a number that tells you about a note. In this case, the quarter note, and that note is worth 1 beat. And so therefore, if the quarter note, as we see here, is worth 1 beat, that means that the half note, which is worth double its value, is worth 2, and the whole note is worth 4 beats, because the whole note is worth double the value of the half notes, right? Okay, so this is just a quick review, and last item is, you're looking at here, the grand staff. The grand staff is, I guess you might say, it's the complete view of let's say of the piano. Okay, you have on the left side you have the bass notes, on the right side you have the notes on the treble clef. Okay, and of course, if you're counting those lines and spaces, you'll see that there are not enough of them to represent the number of keys on the piano or any other instrument, but you could add lines as needed depending on what you're writing or reading, and then those are called ledger lines, which we'll cover in the next lesson. But for now, this was just an overview of the basics to, or introduction to, music notation, right? So let's quickly again go through it. So you have the staff. Oh, by the way, going back to the grand staff. So you have the treble and the bass clef together, and there's always a bracket on the left which indicates that this is these are read together, parallel. So in other words, as you're playing the right hand here, the left hand is playing at the same time. Okay, so this music, you do not play this staff and then go to the next staff. No, you play both of them together, and then you move to the next staff and play those together, because according to the bracket here, this is another grand staff, right? If they were not joined by a bracket, they would not be this would not be a grand staff. Then you could read the top one, then the next one, and the next one, staff by staff. Okay, all right, so you have this. To do a quick review, you have the staff, which is the 5 lines and spaces that are used to write music, right? And this goes throughout the page horizontally from left to right. 5 lines, 4 spaces in between, and that's called the staff. You have the bar line, which are those horizontal from up to down, down to up. Okay, up. Those horizontal lines which divide the staff into measures, right? And in between the bar lines are the measures, right? If there were no bar line there, you could call this whole staff, well, first of all, there would be no measure. But let's say you only have one line here and one line towards the end, this whole staff would be a measure. But as soon as you put in more bar lines, then that's when you start counting in between the bar lines, and that's where you find your measures. Right? And so we also talked about the notes. In this case, the whole note, the half note, the quarter note, the eighth note, and the 16th note. There are two more notes that we haven't talked about, which are the 32nd and the 64th note, but that will be covered in the coming lessons. And so you also have the rest. You have the whole rest, which hangs from the fourth line. You have the half rest, which sits on the third line. You have the quarter note, the quarter rest, eighth note, eighth rest, 16th note, 16th rest. Right? You have the treble clef, which indicates the note that are played from middle C to the right side of the piano, or the higher pitch sounds for middle C. And then you have the bass clef, which is from middle C to the left side towards the lower pitch sound. And then you have the time signature, which is made up of two numbers. In this case, the top number tells you there are 4 beats in each measure, and the bottom number tells you that the quarter note is worth 1 beat. And that's what enables us to understand that the value of the other beats. Okay? So top number tells you there are 4 beats in each measure. The bottom number tells you that the quarter note is worth 1 beat. That's for the time signature. And then we talked about the grand staff, which is the joining of both the treble and the bass clef together with a bracket, and you read the grand staff both treble and bass clef together. Okay? And that's it for a brief review of the intro to music notation.